Hi, everyone. This is Rob. I'm going to be taking you through a hopefully very condensed overview of converting a PDF into an accessible file format. PDFs are probably one of the more problematic file formats for blind and visually impaired students. Oftentimes what happens is people will make photocopies or copies of copies, as it were, and put those into their Canvas course, and they are completely inaccessible. They're basically what amounts to is tantamount to a facsimile. There's nothing that can be screen read off of it. It's just one large image, and you can't read the text on it. So there's a lot of files that have problems, but PDFs are kind of notorious for this. So here's a PDF that I have put into this course site. And by the way, these little indicators are my Anthology Ally. That's the company that owns Ally. It's the Anthology Ally indicators telling me the accessibility scores. So you want to pay close attention to these, because these things in red are trying to tell you that this is a problem. It's almost like a misspelled word. This is saying that this particular file has got really bad accessibility problems. This one's a little bit better. It's kind of in the middle. This one is great. So if you see red, don't ignore those. Those are trying to tell you that you've got a problem with this file, and then it should be fixed before the students see it. So the more that you can be proactive, the better, because I can tell you that it takes a lot more time and effort to remediate a file after a student comes to you with a problem. Trust me on that. We've had to deal with that many, many times. It can take, everybody has to drop what they're doing, and it's sort of all hands on deck to remediate all this content as quickly as possible. So we don't want to do that for a lot of reasons. But this is this file. I'm just going to take a look at it. I'll click on the name of the file, and you can see that not only is it a PDF that's been photocopied or scanned, but it's sideways. And this happens far, far, far too often. I can paginate through the document. I can do some rotation in here, but I'll tell you a better way to do that in just a minute. You can zoom in and out and so forth. Now, if I look at the accessibility score by clicking on the indicator, you can see that this one has a 0. So this one is absolutely terrible. I mean, this is as bad as you can get. So it's just got all sorts of problems. So this will tell you a little bit more about what this indicator is trying to tell you, and this will tell you how to remediate that particular problem. You can remediate that and then return to this and then browse and find that fixed file and replace it. And the cool thing is that when you do that, Ally will replace the original file link with the replacement file link. And you don't have to go in and recreate that file with that new file that you've uploaded. You don't have to recreate the links and so forth. It will, every place where that's present in the course, it will be replaced. So I'm going to close this for now. So I can click on the indicator to give me more of the indication of what's going on, or I can click on the title, which I'll do. And then I'm going to click up here where it says alternative formats. And this is what students would actually see when they want to download a file into a different format. There's a lot of different file formats that they can choose from. And we're not here to go through each of these today. That's not what I'm recording for, but you can see there's a variety of different formats. One of them happens to be an OCR, an optical character recognition PDF. And this is what we want to choose for this, is to convert that. Now, I'll tell you up front that just because the students have this option to do an alternative file format doesn't really give you the freedom to go ahead and continue to upload inaccessible PDFs and just tell the students just use the alternative format if you need that option. That's really not the way to fix this. This option will OCR and make it into a screen readable PDF, but it still lacks many, many, many of the accessibility features we need that particularly blind students need if they're using a screen reader. So I wouldn't default to telling the students, well, just use the Ally thing and, you know, call it a day. That's really not the best way to do this, but I want to show you how this works, and then we're going to also show you how to fix this correctly using Acrobat. So this is a good stopgap. If nothing else, again, it will take this and convert it. So let's just go ahead and do that. So we're going to select that and choose download. And this is what it did. This is the OCR version of that. And you can see now that rather than being a facsimile or an image, it's now, at least I can see that I can highlight blocks of text. So it's not treated like a picture anymore. It's now treated more like something that can be screen read using a screen reader. And moreover, it also oriented the file in the correct orientation. So that's great. So at this point, this is okay. A student could possibly read this. It sort of depends on their screen reader. The problem is that without the proper, what we call tag tree structure in an Acrobat file, the screen reader could become confused and go all the way across the page from this column to this column because it doesn't understand the columns and the structure of the document. So it may seem like it's okay, but it depends upon the document. There are as many problems and variations with PDFs that as there are going to be options to fix them, and I can't cover all of them in this short recording, but this is just one potential PDF problem that could come up, or something like a poem, which has multiple columns, which can really cause some issues. So this is what Ally is doing, and I could download this and then re-upload this back up into Canvas, into Ally, doing the option I told you about, and it would be better. That would be good, not great, but good. That's at least a basic remediation. You would see the PDF score improve somewhat. I'm not going to do that right now because I want to leave this for example purposes, but it would probably be, if I were to replace this, it would probably be an amber, which is a medium when I go to replace it. Now, when I replace that, let me stop share real quick and reshare another file. Let's see here. So now this is that original file, sideways, scanned in Adobe Acrobat DC, and you do have access to Adobe Acrobat DC through the university for free. So I would take advantage of that if you could. Now, one of the things I'm going to have you do is over on the toolbar on the side is you click on More Tools, and you can actually add additional tools and functionality. And two of the ones I think you should add are the accessibility here and the action wizard down here. Okay, so get those added. And those will come in down here at the bottom. There's the accessibility, and there's the action wizard right here. So let's just go ahead and we're going to click on the action wizard, and we're going to click on Make Accessible, and we'll click on Start. And there's no title for this document, so whatever this happens to be, I can't remember what the title was here, but let's just call it, we'll put in the word title because I don't know what the title of this particular poem is. The subject, the author, the author's name would go here. Keywords, if they're relevant. This is the document language, and I leave this at the highest, one of the highest DPIs is 600. I think that's the highest it goes. And it has gone ahead and it has rotated the document. Now, says this document is intended to be used as a fillable form. No, this is not a fillable form, so I'm going to go ahead and just skip that. The language is English. It says Acrobat will detect all figures in this document, display any figures with missing alternate text. Okay. So what it's doing is it's trying to find any text images in this particular file that does not have what's called alternate text. Alternate text is what's used by screen readers. So when a person who is blind is viewing a document and they come across a picture or an image or a graph or a table, the screen reader will announce to that person what exactly it is that they have encountered. So you want to provide a somewhat robust description of what it is that they are seeing, or should be seeing, that is expressed in that document. Now, a trick about that is you want to try and keep that to no more than about the length of a tweet. You know, you can go as short as 3 or 4 characters, or maybe a paragraph. You don't have to go longer than that to describe whatever it is that you're looking at, unless it's what's called a complex image. A complex image is something that requires a little bit more robustness in terms of trying to be able to discern what is on that image. And that can be quite, if you think about a painting, for example, a Rembrandt painting, there might be quite a bit going on in that particular painting that you can't describe in 3 words. So, you know, a complex image may really call for having a more robust, complete description of what that image is. And you never want to start with the word "a picture of" or a graph of or a photo of, because the screen reader will make that announcement for the student already. It will say, it detects that it's a photo or a image, picture, and it will say a picture. So you don't want to then repeat that and say a picture. You know, because the screen reader will say a picture, a picture. So you don't need to do that. You just need to start the description of what it is. So that's what alternative text is. You may see this option says decorative figure. So those are going to be things like, if I'm looking at this document here, although it's not detecting it for some reason, but this is a decorative image, this little stylistic thing, which is above the title in this particular poem. That's a decorative image. That is not required for a student who is visually impaired. They don't have to know what that is. It's just ornamental. It's just for pretty, if you will, for decorative. And it really, by including that, trying to describe that, it just really makes the document more complex. So you just have to ignore those. That's what, when it's a decorative image, you just simply mark it as decorative. Now, in this particular case, what it's doing is it's picking up fragments from the scanned image. And that's what this is right here. This is you're going to see that throughout. This is the book gutter. And it's just picking up that dark spot, which is nothing. So I'm just going to mark that as a decorative, so it'll ignore it. And it's picking up this fragmentation, even though it's not really a decorative image. The decorative thing will just basically allow the screen reader to ignore it. There's another one there. I'll just mark that as decorative. There's another one down here. This is just that those scanned or photocopied artifacts is all they are. That gutter, another one, save and close. Okay. Now we're going to go through, it's going to automatically start an accessibility check. You notice that it's come up with these 7 items over on the left-hand side. It always comes up with these 7 items. That's the way Acrobat works. So it's going to go through and it's going to, if you do this little window shade, it'll expand out and tell you a little bit more about what it's finding. Now, there are 2 document, it says 2 document issues. Actually, you're always going to see these 2 things highlighted no matter what. Acrobat always says this no matter what the document is. It will always tell you to manually check the logical reading order. This is just to ensure that as students are tabbing through the document, that the cursor is following a natural progression of the document hierarchy from left to right, top to bottom. Sometimes cursors will skip pages or go across the gutter instead of down the page. So you just want to check that with the tab to make sure that it's reading correctly. Because when students are with a screen reader, you have to understand that they're relying upon the screen reader to basically voice back everything that's in the document. Now, a poem like this may not make a lot of sense in this example, but if this is a 8-page or 10-page file, And the student really just wants what's on the last page of that file. They've already listened to the first 7 pages or whatever. They want to get quickly to the last page. Well, you don't want to have them go back with the screen reader and reread to them starting at page 1 all the way through page 7 just to get to where they need to be at page 8. What the student with a disability wants to do is to be able to use their tab key and tab through the document quickly using what's called a header structure. And that's why in Word you want to include heading levels. And in Acrobat we call this a tag tree, and I'll show you that in just a minute. That way, when they press the tab key, it will bounce from the natural to the natural headings in each of the sections. So they could literally go tab and then tab to here, and then tab to here, and then tab to here. So 3, 4 tabs. They could be at the bottom of this document very quickly rather than having to listen to the screen reader read all of this back again just to get to this particular part of the poem they want to listen to. That's why tagging and header structures are absolutely critical for students. You have to have that. So this is what logical reading order is trying to tell us, just to confirm that. But this document does have a couple problems that I'll show you in a second. And the color contrast needs to be a manual check. What I recommend is a product called Color Contrast Analyzer. This one looks pretty good, black and white. Just a couple of areas where there might be some artifacts from a poor scan, but the color contrast itself, I think, is pretty good. But if you ever have a document that is 2 colors on sort of, maybe you have a background color and a foreground color, which are very difficult to read, which happens quite often, then you will want to remediate that. And the color contrast checker, what's telling you is to go through and use a third-party tool to check that to make sure that contrast is okay. And again, the one I recommend is free. It's called Color Contrast Analyzer. So those 2 things always come up. Just be aware of that. Those 2 things, just sort of alerts to always check those. The heading structure is a little bit different. The heading structure says the appropriate nesting failed, and it's looking at this particular element right here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to show the tags panel. And the tags panel may seem a little bit overwhelming, but really it's pretty simple when you kind of break it down. What it's trying to show you here, if I expand out the tags panel here just a little bit, this is that tagging structure that Acrobat needs to be able to identify its document structure. So let me take a look here. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of going through and I'm looking to see where it's having a particular problem with this. And I think the problem that it's having is with this right here. This should actually be, it says heading level 3. But this is actually the title. So this is actually a heading level 1. So I'm going to change that to a 1 from H3 to H1. I'm going to close that. I'm going to rerun my document using this time the accessibility check. Let's just run that and see what we have. And by the way, one of the things you can actually do too, if the document is not tagged at all, you can run this feature called auto tag, and that will add that tagging. Let's just do a quick accessibility check one more time here. And it's still coming up with this, do that one more time here. This tag tree element is still a problem. And the reason why I suspect is that, oh, here we have a 1904. And this is, again, this is what is highlighting right here is this word that thinks it's a heading level 4, which it's really not. It's probably closer to a heading level 2. This would be a heading level 1, and this would be a heading level 2, and this may be a heading level 3. Or you could leave this as a 1 as well. And these would be heading level 2. So there would be heading level 2 and a heading level 2 and so forth and so forth and so forth. Let's take a look at that again. See what it's coming up with. And there it's passed the accessibility check. So now the heading structure is appropriate. It went through and tagged it correctly. So it's past that structure. So it's just really a matter of kind of going through and making sure as it highlights the words in the document to make sure that it follows. Think of it like if you're writing an academic paper, you have a heading structure in your academic paper. I think it's the same thing. You have a title for your paper, and then you typically have a heading level 2 or 3 and 4, almost like an outline structure in a paper. And so it's the same thing. You would have a title, which is always going to be a heading level 1. By the way, you only have one heading level 1 in a document. That's just sort of a rule of thumb. You never have multiple heading level 1s. Only one is typically the title of the document. And then everything that follows is either going to be a heading level 2, or if it's nested, if it's an academic paper outline, then you could have a heading level 3 and a heading level 4 and so forth and so forth. And you just have to tag it correctly. So it will outline the words that need to be tagged correctly in the tag tree. And then all you have to do is just go through and change that to the correct heading level 1, 2, 3, 4 to make sure that it properly tags. And that way, when a student is tabbing through the document, it will flow in the correct and logical order. So all is good. This thing is in great shape. I would, at this point, go ahead and just save this file. I can save it as a different name if I want to. It doesn't make any difference. Then return to Canvas and return to Ally and import this back in using that replace option I was showing you earlier. And this will replace that original file. And this one is now in an accessible file format. It has been rotated automatically. It has been OCR'd automatically. The proper language has been set, the proper title has been set, the proper tag tree order has been set. And I did that while I'm just yammering on here recording. And it took, from start to finish, this would take, after you become a little bit more fluent with this would take 3 minutes, 2 minutes. It wouldn't take long to remediate this document. It's far easier to take 2 minutes, 3 minutes and fix it before you put this into Canvas, because students will rely on this. And having to go through and remediate tens of files that are inaccessible PDF files is very, very time consuming. And so you want to be very careful about scanning books and so forth and kind of throwing those into Canvas just randomly. Because again, those are where we have, or photocopies of articles, because those are just very, very problematic. You want to make those into an accessible file format before the students are, you release those to students. And that is it. Again, this is just one example of a PDF. There are many other ones. This is one I happen to have picked here. There are others that, there are going to be different sorts of situations and variables, but so we'll take them as they come, but just to give you an idea how easy this process is.